Chair, am I audible now?
Yes, you are audible. Continue.
Oh, thank you so much. Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Science, Technology and Innovation, honorable members of the Parliament, a representative of the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, led by the DG, Dr. Pele, fellow council members, Acting Chief Executive Officer of SACNASP, members of the management, distinguished stakeholders, good morning. On behalf of the South African Council for Natural Scientific Profession, SACNASP Council, allow me to express our sincere appreciation for the opportunity to appear before the Honorable Committee. SACNASP regards this engagement as an important accountability platform through which the Council and organization account for the work entrusted on us in terms of our legislative mandate and the broader science, technology and innovation priority of the country. Honorable Chairperson, SACNASP remain fully committed to supporting the professionalization, regulation and ethical advancement on the natural scientific profession in South Africa. We also recognize the important role that the natural science play in advancing national development, strengthening public confidence, and supporting evidence-informed decision-making across government, industry, and education and society. This morning, the Acting Chief Executive Officer will present SACNASP's annual performance plan for 2026-2027 financial year. The presentation will provide an overview of the organization's mandate, strategic priorities, planned performance commitment, financial consideration, and key institutional risk. As Council, we wish to assure this Honorable Committee that we remain committed to providing effective oversight, strategic guidance, and governance support to ensure that SACNASP continue to discharge its mandate with integrity, accountability, and professionalism. Allow me to acknowledge the SACNASP delegation joining this engagement. Present today are members of the Executive Committee, the Acting Chief Executive Officer, the Council Secretariat, the Finance Manager, and the Legal Manager. The delegation is available to support the presentation and respond to matters that may arise during the engagement. In closing, we thank the Honorable Committee, the Department, and all stakeholders for the continued support and engagement with SACNASP. We look forward to constructive and meaningful discussion. With your permission, Honorable Chairperson, I now invite the Acting Chief Executive Officer to take the committee through the presentation. Over to you, CEO.
Thank you very much, President. Greetings to the Chairperson and the members of the Portfolio Committee, the DG and colleagues from the DSTI, to the President, Dr. Mabaso, and EXCO members that are present, as well as management. And just like the colleagues from ASSAf, we are also in Cape Town in one room as we present our strategic plan and the APP. And just to provide context of our presentation, this is the overview of the presentation. Just briefly about SACNASP, the South African Council for the Natural Scientific Professions is the registration and regulatory authority for the natural science profession in South Africa, and it was established in terms of the Natural Scientific Professions Act, Act number 27 of 2003, as amended by the Science Technology Laws Amendment Act number 7 of 2014. And SACNASP is guided by a clear vision to advance an ethical mastery, environmental stewardship, and excellence in the natural scientific professions for a transformed and thriving society. And our mission is to professionalize the natural sciences through registration, regulation, and continuous professional development, while we promote the role and the contribution of the profession for national development. And we are anchored by 5 key values, one of them being professionalism, innovation, resilience, inclusivity, as well as partnerships. And members of the committee, these values guide how we regulate the profession, how we protect and safeguard the public, and support transformation within the sector. Members, SACNASP executes its mandate through 4 strategic pillars. Firstly, as mentioned, we do register natural science professionals, and this is to essentially ensure competence and professional recognition within the sector. And beyond registration, we play an enabling role through lifelong learning programs, such as the Candidate Mentoring Phase program that we spearhead, as well as continuing professional development. And with this, we ensure that natural science professionals remain relevant, and they are responsive, and they are equipped to operate within rapidly changing scientific and technological environment. And thirdly, SACNASP plays an important advisory role by contributing scientific expertise to policy development and evidence-based decision-making processes across various levels of government and related sectors. And lastly, members, as a regulatory body, it is our obligation to not only protect the natural science profession itself, but it is also to safeguard the public and the environment by enforcing ethical and professional standards. And collectively, these pillars position SACNASP as both a regulator and enabler of national development. And members, our work is fully aligned to the DSTI's newly adopted mantra of placing science, technology, and innovation at the center of government, education, industry, and society. And in relation to government, we strengthen ethical governance and service delivery through establishing partnerships across all spheres of government at national, provincial, and local levels. And within education, we work very closely with other entities such as SAQA, and we signed an MOU with the CHE, and we continue to work closely with higher education institutions to ensure alignment between the academic programs that they offer and professional registration requirements, which is our core mandate. And with regards to industry, through initiatives such as the Employer Champions Program, we support the professionalization of the sector, and this is through industry-aligned partnerships, as well as the CMP program that we are spearheading. And with regards to society, as a council, we promote broader participation in science by strengthening the early pipeline development and increasing inclusion of women, youth, and persons living with disabilities in the natural sciences. And again, through these interventions, as SACNASP, we contribute to building a capable, ethical, and innovation-driven nation. That brings me to the next slides that speaks to the alignment to the midterm development plan. And as a council, we support inclusive economic growth and job creation through lifelong learning programs that we have, as well as strategic partnerships that we foster that strengthen the profession itself. And we do contribute to reducing poverty and tackling high cost of living through our science engagement and communication initiatives, and the transformation of the sector as well. And thirdly, We support the development of a capable, ethical, and developmental state. And this is by increasing the number of natural scientists within the sector and improving the retention rate, as well as ensuring high professional and ethical standards across the sector. This brings me to our strategic objectives from 2025 to 2030. The first one talks to increasing the number of registered natural science professionals, ensuring greater retention and enhancing the efficiency of the registration process. And secondly, to ensure high professional and ethical standards for the natural science professionals in the country. And third, to promote the professional development and transformation of the natural science profession through lifelong learning programs, such as the CMP and the CPD programs. And fourth, to enhance and promote the contribution of the profession through science communication and engagement. And lastly, to foster strategic partnerships and collaborations in the advancement of the profession. Just to highlight a few highlights of the work that we do, the new council was inaugurated late last year, around October 2025. And just to inform the portfolio committee members that the Natural Scientific Professions Bill was published for public comments in March 2026, and members of the public are still able to provide any comments with regards to the bill, and to inform the committee that we spearheaded a report that was commissioned to UP Enterprises, focusing on the skills and competencies required for the future natural scientists amid grand societal challenges. And this specific report, it aligns very well to the decadal plan, and this report was completed and will be launched during this quarter. And to also just inform the committee that we do sign MOUs and MOAs with various stakeholders, and one of them at a provincial level being the Gauteng Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, or GDARD. And we also signed MOUs with municipalities such as the City of Cape Town and the Institute for the Future of Work, IFORT, that falls under TUT. And in terms of transformation, we have initiatives such as the SheSTEAM program that highlights the need for communities to unlock the full potential of young girls and women in STEAM fields. And apologies for the background noise. My colleagues is addressing that. In terms of measuring our performance, the first strategic objective speaks to increasing the number of registered natural scientists, ensuring greater retention and enhancing the efficiency of the registration process. And these are the planned outputs for this specific strategic objective. And it looks at the number of new registered natural science professionals that will be registered. It looks at the percentage of registered natural scientists renewing their annual registrations per annum, and also looking at the turnaround time for our scientists to get registered with the councils. And in terms of the numbers, the stats are documented there. We aim to increase these numbers as stated, and also increase the percentage, or rather look at the turnaround time as well as the retention rate. And members of the portfolio committee, this is an overview of SACNASP's registration footprint across the various fields of practice. SACNASP currently oversees more than 21,000 registered natural scientists across 26 fields of practice. On the left, this is the list of the fields of practice that are gazetted, from agricultural science, extension science, zoological science, all the way to other fields such as toxicological science. And just to inform the committee that we are supported through a diverse network of voluntary associations. Our registration categories include professional natural scientists, certificated, as well as candidate natural scientists. And this really reflects the full professional pipeline from entry level to advanced professional recognition. And also to mention that the data further demonstrates the breadth of the scientific capability within the country, with strong representation in various fields such as agricultural science, environmental science, geological science, as we go further, all of which are critical to South Africa's developmental priorities. And I think, members of the Committee, of importance is that this registration database is not merely administrative in nature, but it also serves a strategic national resource that enables government and other key stakeholders to identify scientific expertise and deploy professional capacity where it is required the most. And this brings me to the next slide, members. That talks to mobilizing scientific capacity in a polycrisis, in an increasing complex and interconnected environment. As a country, and I think globally as well, we do face a polycrisis, and one of SACNASP's most important strategic strength, it lies in our database, which I have already mentioned that it serves not only as a regulatory instrument, but also as a valuable national resource that can be used by government and other key stakeholders in addressing increasingly complex and interconnected societal challenges. And SACNASP contributes to national resilience by leveraging its scientific registration database to proactively identify those expertise and strengthen government's response capacity to these challenges. And just on the right, some of the stats in terms of our geographic distribution that is reflected on the maps. This illustrates the availability of scientific expertise across different provinces, and which is critical for coordinated national and local responses. And members, in this regard, the database is important to ensure that we mobilize our resources where they are required. The second strategic objectives, it talks to ensuring high professional and ethical standards for natural science professionals. And the next table, it shows the planned outputs for strategic objective 2, and the outcome there is enhanced professional and ethical conduct of the natural science professionals. And as in terms of the indicator and the output indicators, we are looking at educational campaigns that are conducted on ethical conduct and professionalism, and issuing of practice notes on natural science matters that will be issued per annum. And just further to that, our registered scientists need to adhere to a code of conduct that is to ensure that they conduct themselves in a manner that upholds the integrity of the profession. And we do have platforms where they can report any issues of misconduct and failure, which is stipulated in our Act. Failure to comply with the code of conduct will constitute improper conduct, which may result in the registered persons being found guilty or being sanctioned in terms of Section 33 of the NSP Act. The third objective, it looks at advancing the professional development and transformation of the natural science through lifelong learning programs. And again, here we are looking at the participation of women, youth, as well as persons living with disabilities. And this is looking at their participation in CPD programs. That is to make sure that they continue to upskill and reskill themselves within the natural sciences. And the percentage in terms of the participation is stipulated in the table that is listed here. And then the fourth strategic objectives looks at enhancing and promoting the contribution of the natural science profession through science communication and engagement. And for this one, we are looking at publication of advisory notes that are relevant to the natural sciences to advise government and key stakeholders on the role of the natural sciences within the country. And we are looking at the number of science engagement events across the whole country, and also publication of newsletters to ensure that our members as well as other stakeholders are informed about the activities that are undertaken by the council. And members of the portfolio committee, we do start at the grassroots level when we do our science engagements initiatives. And by way of an example is the SheSTEM program or initiative that really forms part of SACNASP's broader transformation and inclusion agenda within the natural science sector. And this initiative advances the transformation in alignment with the mantra that I have already highlighted by the DSTI, with a particular focus on strengthening the participation and representation of women and girls within the science, technology, engineering, as well as arts and mathematics. And through such programs at SACNASP, then we reinforce the sustained exposure to science through science engagement activities that are essentially designed to support long-term gender inclusion and equity in the natural sciences. And by way of example, earlier this year, we went to the Eastern Cape, where we collaborated with the Walter Sisulu University, as well as the Eastern Cape Department of Education, where we interacted with over 250 young girls from high schools to create awareness about the importance and the relevance of the natural sciences within the sector. So most importantly, the SheSTEM is not only about participation, but it's also about building confidence, visibility, and the future scientific capacity for the country. And the fifth strategic objective, it looks at fostering strategic partnerships and collaboration to advance the natural science profession. And for this particular strategic objective, we're looking at increasing global exposure. We're looking at skills development and capacity building for all of the registered professionals, as well as students and learners, thus contributing to a competitive and innovative workforce now and in the future. And we have the stats for the MTEF as well, or the targets rather. And just way of example is the work that we do with the China Association for Science and Technology, and we work under the DSTI and CAST Memorandum of Understanding, where we send out young people to interact with learned persons at China. And last year, I think we sent over 10 of them to engage at this platform. And during the Science Forum South Africa, we had a delegation from there interact with our scientists locally as well. And we are also engaging with other countries, not just China only, as well as African countries as well. And then for the next section of this presentation, I will then request our finance manager, Mr. Mangalana, to go through the presentation. Over to you, Mr. Mangalana.
Yeah, thank you so much, Acting CEO, and good morning, Chairperson, and also to both colleagues from SACNASP and also from SACNASP, from ASSAf. From the financial point of view, I'll start with the income, looking at the budget and also looking at the audited financials for the 2024-2025 financial year. So I'll start with the revenue from scientists. As you are aware, we actually do obviously generate income from our scientists through annual fees. So the audited financials for the 2024-2025 was 20 million, and the project income that we have received from the DSTI was 10 million, and other income was 200,000. So that takes us to 31,000 total revenue, excluding the interest received. And in terms of the expenditure, we were sitting at 31 million as well. Then that gives us a gross profit of 600 plus the interest of 1.2 million. That takes us to a net surplus of 1.8 million. So the estimated for 2025-2026 yes, was from the revenue from the scientist was 23 million, and of course from the DSTI we received the project funding of 10 million, and the estimated the budgeted other income was 600,000, and that gives us a total revenue of 34 million with an expenditure of 35 and a gross profit of minus 800, and plus the interest received from our investment activities. And then that gives us a net surplus, which is a break even of 400,000. And of course, for the 2026-2027 up until 2028-2029, as you can see, we are actually just breaking even with the 2026-2027 195, 27-28 697, and of course 28-29 to 1,000,063. So in terms of the allocation from the expenditure, so it's broken down into two. One is administrative, and two it's programs. So for 2024, it was 22,946,000, and the programs, which one is the human capital development and transformation, which is CMP and CPD, and the second one is policy and advisory, and third one being regulatory, fourth being science engagement, and lastly collaboration and partnership. So for the audited was 31,310,000. The estimated was 35,113,000, and for the next 4 years, which is 26 up until 2030, that's for 2026-2027 was 40 million, it's 40 million, I beg your pardon. And then for 2027, 2028, it's 44 million, and 28, 29, that's 48. And then lastly, 29, 30, that's 54 million. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chair. I will hand over to Dr. Matavan, our acting CEO. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mangalana, for that presentation. And next is looking at our key risks. SACNASP has identified a number of strategic risks that require continuous monitoring and evaluation, and to proactively mitigate to ensure effective delivery of our mandate. And the first one, it relates to the ICT infrastructure and the application processes. And as a regulator, we do acknowledge that efficient digital systems are critical to improving operational effectiveness and improving our turnaround times and stakeholder experience. And in that breath, we are therefore prioritizing systems enhancement and digital modernization initiatives to ensure that we mitigate this risk. And the second one is reputational damage or harm to SACNASP arising from dissatisfaction from our members. And again, this is a priority for us. And in response, SACNASP is strengthening stakeholder engagement and improving communication and reviewing processes to enhance efficiency and responsiveness. And the third one, ineffective enforcement of high professional and ethical standards. And this is also important. As a regulator, we have a responsibility to uphold professional integrity, protect and safeguard the public, and also safeguard the environment through effective compliance and ethical oversight mechanisms. And another strategic risk looks at the inadequate promotion of the relevance and the contribution of the profession within the broader society and national development priorities. And to address this, members, SACNASP continues to invest in science communication, public engagement and advocacy initiatives that elevate the visibility of this profession and the value of the natural sciences. And lastly, ineffective partnerships and collaborations within national, regional and international partners. And this may limit opportunities for knowledge exchange, benchmarking and global cooperation. And as a council, we continue to strengthen strategic partnerships from all partners to support innovation, professional mobility, as well as institutional growth. This concludes our presentation, and we would like to thank members of the Portfolio Committee for this opportunity to engage and present our strat plan as well as our APP. I will now hand over back to our president. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Acting CEO. Honorable Minister, Honorable Chairperson, and Honorable.
Yeah, your volume is low again. Can you perhaps come closer and increase it?
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible, but you are speaking from a very low position. But continue in the interest of time.
Okay, thank you so much. Honorable Chairperson, this concludes SACNASP presentation on 2026-2027 annual performance plan. As a council, we appreciate the opportunity afforded to us to present before this honorable committee and we remain available to respond to any question or matter for clarification that members may wish to raise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the Council for Natural Sciences Professionals. Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, can I then invite your good self to engage? You will engage firstly with the first presentation from ASSAf. Respond, and then after we then come to the South African Council for Natural Sciences Professionals, so that we are not we afford them equal opportunity to respond accordingly. Can we start with the first presentation? I will note hands, honorable members, accordingly. Can I also note hands from your good self? I don't see any hands, but okay, I see. I can see hands now. I only see two hands. We have Honorable Jadu, followed by Honorable Sapo. Honorable Jadu, honorable members time themselves 3 minutes maximum, and then followed by Honorable Sapo will be followed by Dr. Tembegwayo. Dr. Tembegwayo has indicated that she has a flu and struggling with the voice, but will allow her questions, because she has forwarded them to myself, will allow our content advisor to just read them out, and then Honorable Dr. Tembegwayo will be followed by Honorable Mtambi in that sequence. Can we start with yourself, Honorable Mjadu?
Thank you very much, Chairperson, honorable members, and department. I don't want to waste your time. Let me go straight to my question. I want to welcome the presentation, board presentation. Let me go to ASSAf, page 9. The report states that the membership transformation progress include 33% women and 35% Black academics. Given that these figures fall meaningfully short of a national demographic representation, what specific accountability measures and binding targets has ASSAf set for the 2026 and 2027 financial year to fast track this percentage and to ensure and ensure they are no merely incremental? And number two, page 18, the annual target section lists multiple plans output, but include no measurable performance indicators. How will the committee hold ASSAf accountable for completion rates, and what geometrics benchmarks will be used to measure success or failure for each priority area by the end of 2026 and 2027? And page 23, the budget allocation summary provides only a link with no numerical figures. Given that the resources consideration are critical to deliver, why has no detailed budget breakdown has been presented? And how does this ASSAf justify proceeding with at least 27 planned activities when you look at page 12 to page 16 without disclosing the specific funding allocation to each outcome? And lastly, Chairperson, the governance section commit, when you look at page 20, the governance section commit to achievement of an unqualified audit, but offer no historical audit outcome. What were ASSAf auditing funding for the past 3 financial years, and what specific geometrics improvement in financial management or compliance or targeted for 2026 and 2027 to ensure the unqualified opinions is achieved? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Sapo.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to you, to the honorable members and everyone in the meeting. Chair, I think I once raised this in one of our previous portfolio committees. I asked the minister, it said that I saw him earlier on, but I think he left, that at what point are we going to have a conversation about some of the entities that the department have? And at what point are we going to have a conversation about entities that we see that seems as if there is a duplication of work and their relevance thereof? I honestly have a problem with the transformation in ASSAf. I think at some point we must be very honest, because I reached the point where I think it's kind of deliberate. There is no way. If you look at the target, Chair, they haven't changed. You ask yourself whether they are not changed because the entity is comfortable. It's so itself as if it's stable, or they are not changed because there is no need to them to change it. There's none. They remain the same as the previous year. I think I have a problem with that. You see, Chair, some of the questions that are raised by Honorable Judge, especially in conjunction with transformation, they remain like that, and to them it's normal. Now, I want to check, Chair, what are some of the outcomes of their research that have impact, or their evidence-based scientific advices that had an impact or that have influenced the national policies? And if they can be able to point to say it's Department A and Department B and Department C, so that at least we can be at ease to say the work that has been done by the entity does at least have a value in some of the national policies that are in place. The second thing, Chair, is in relations to the partnership, especially with the Department of Higher Education and Department of Basic Education. If there is any support or any partnership in terms of funding that they receive from these two departments, I see in terms of their budget, the bigger portion is only relying on the parliamentary grant, with only few coming from Stellenbosch and the other part. That simply means the entity itself relies only on the parliamentary grant. But I really don't understand then them refusing, because for me it's refusing to transform. I want to check if there are any partnership with those departments that are in place, and what is that, if there is any. The last thing, Chair, is on the effectiveness of the science engagement that the entity is planning to do. I just want to check if they can be able to track it down, and how effective are those engagements that they are doing, and if they are taking them to any disadvantage or rural provinces, at least if they do, and how effective is that? Those are the things, Chair, that I wanted to raise. But honestly, I think we must have a conversation about this entity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Sapo. Honorable Dr. Thembekwayo, I have noted your good self, and then I've also alerted the meeting of your challenge. If you are able to ask your questions, go ahead. But if you are not, I've requested Dr. Renee, our content advisor, to read the questions for ASSAf. I'll get an indication from yourself.
Can they read it, please, Chairperson? Can they read it for me? Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Renee, can you read the I think it's 3 or 2 questions from Dr. Thembekwayo?
Okay.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, everyone. The questions on behalf of Dr. Thembekwayo to ASSAf are, number one, which Science for Society programs are most at risk of being scaled back by the budget reductions? Question two, what percentage of the 2026-27 budget is derived from non-governmental sources? That's international grants or private partnerships. And what is the target for increasing this to offset the DSTI cuts? Question number three, with scholarship support and transformation as a core outcome, what specific portion of the 2026-27 budget is earmarked for young scientists and women in science? Question four, given the 2025 public sector wage agreements, what percentage of the budget is now consumed by compensation of employees, and how is the Academy protecting its core mandate from being crowded out by rising staff costs? And the final question, are there any specific budget allocations to improve the impact factors and global reach of South African journals? That example, the South African Journal of Science, to ensure value for money in scholarly publishing. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Dr. Renee. We then move to Honorable Mthambi.
Thank you, Chairperson. And take this opportunity to welcome the presentation and also acknowledge the team. And maybe as the starting point, Chair, I want to echo the sentiments as raised by Honorable Mojadu with regard to transformation. And as I do that, on their slide, they've spoken about membership transformation progress, 33% women and 35 Black academics in membership. Then I want to understand these 35 Blacks, it's of how many of them are women? Yeah, to count on that number of that 35% is Black. Then also you look at the composition, starting also from the composition of the council itself, chairperson of the council. And then also linking it with what our universities are producing in terms of young, resilient Black scientists. And then also this issue of then when they apply to be admitted to the council, they keep on being rejected. Then maybe when you do that, you must share with us as the Act prescribe, your own Act, which is an Act of Parliament, in particular with regard to Section 5. Then if you keep on rejecting all these young, sharp minds of Black academics, and then although them complying with the provision of Section 5.4 of your Act, then also the Act makes provision with regard to the prescribed criteria. Chair, maybe it's high time that prescribed criteria that makes to leave a lot of young Black professionals out of the system. It needs to be shared with us, or maybe Professor Majosi as the chair will be able to tell us what is the prescribed criteria. Secondly, with regard to this issue, there are those then that don't get accepted, and then the Act provides for an appeal. Maybe you will tell us, since they've been in office, out of those unsuccessful candidates who have lodged their appeal, how many appeals have they received? And then also with regard to that, maybe for one to understand who constitute this appeal authority, would that lead to a lot of these good professionals that are disqualified from then getting into the council? Because without that, I was very excited. In their guiding documents, they also mentioned the NDP. They've also have a transformation strategy. But in actual sense, you don't see that being put in action. Maybe somebody will have to tell this, share with us, especially now. Also, maybe to understand as we progress, Chair, this one will go to the department. Normally, the Act also make provision in Section 76 that once they are appointed, the minister must then submit a report to the National Assembly relating to such appointment or reappointment. I've asked the researcher to search that for us after I've also tried to look that. I've never seen that. Maybe the department can also be able to explain to us why then was this not submitted to because it's a legislative requirement that has to be adhered to. Then the other issue that they raise on their key risks with regard to, they are saying they are not able to find sufficient candidates meeting selection and transformation criteria. I think I want them to also further expand to that. And then they've mentioned about the project that they've supported on just transition. And then I think one will have to understand from them what policy influence has emerged from this work with regard to the just transition, and also how have they then integrated indigenous knowledge system into climate and sustainability work. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mtambi. Honorable Nkosi, then followed by Honorable Mchunu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I would also like to welcome the presentation and appreciate the presentation, Honorable Chair. I just have just few questions maybe that I needed clarity on, Chair. First question is, I wanted to check with ASSAf, in what ways does ASSAf ensure that its scientific advisory activities and consensus studies remain aligned with the country's policy imperatives related to inclusive growth, poverty alleviation, and building a capable, ethical, and developmental state? That is my first question, Chair. My second question, Chair, is just wanted to check with ASSAf, how does ASSAf measure the impact of its transformation and partnership initiatives on advancing the inclusivity, relevance, and uptake of its scientific advice within government and society at large? Are there any monitoring mechanisms or feedback loops in place, Chair? Chair, on ASSAf, lastly, Chair, I just wanted to check, Chair, is how is ASSAf actively transforming its membership, the council and staff composition to better reflect South Africa's democratic diversity, particularly in terms of the race, gender, and disability inclusion, as outlined in the transformation strategy and recent membership statistics? Chair, those are the questions I just wanted to pose, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mchunu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Greetings to yourself and the members. My first question is on their annual target, where they are presenting that the number of young scientists activities supported, they are targeting 4. My question when it comes to the young scientist, which relates to what Honorable Ntambi was talking about, young scientists that are produced by universities annually, and you target 4. What is the demographics of that of those young scientists targeted that are supported, and also on the proportional of Black members, proportion of women, and they are saying there is a 2% growth, total Black members per annum. Does it mean that we don't have Black scientists who qualify to be members? I mean, to be part of ASSAf? Because if you write it down and say you only look at the 2% Black members per annum, so it means your target is very low. And if you want to if we talk of a transformation, how far can you get to transforming transformation based on the demographics of this country if you are only targeting 2% per annum? I was covered by Honorable Nkosi on the other questions, but I'm also concerned, Chair, that in their previous presentations and the previous discussions with the Portfolio Committee, there was we did raise the issue of transformation in terms of the gender, transformation in terms of the demographics of this country. But I really feel that we are moving backward in terms of moving forward. If we move forward with 2%, then it means in order to reach at least 30%, imagine how many years it's going to take. It means it's going to take us about 15 years to get to at least a 30%. Then there is another one, Chair, where they talk about engaging the public as part of their target. They say public lecturers, and there is where they outline those public lecturers, including but I would like to get to know which provinces have they touched, which because they also talk about the STEM supporting the STEM or promoting STEM subjects in schools. Where have they touched? Where have they been? Where they do those activities? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, honorable members. I've got only one question to yourself, ASSAf, which is in supporting government in navigating emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, biotechnology, quantum technologies, and digital transformation. What can you give us as an indicator of the work that you've done to assist government in navigating through these new technologies so that we can leverage on them and start moving towards a direction that says government is fully aware of emerging trends, new technologies, and we are geared up to take up those opportunities through proper training and also implementation by government. Can you just maybe indicate how far or what is the work that you've done towards this direction? And then I will then invite yourself, ASSAf, through the chair, Professor Majosi, to lead us in responses with your team, the executive chairperson.
Yes, no, thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and also thanks to the members of the committee for all the questions raised, which I find to be very, very apt to the discussion that we are having this morning. We will respond to these as follows. I'll just start off perhaps with responding to transformation in general, because that's an overarching kind of a concern. Almost every honorable member has touched on transformation. I'll touch on that as a response from my end. And then on the other issues raised by Honorable Jadu Sapo, Honorable Tembekwayo, Mutambi Nkosi Mchunu, and Honorable Makubu, I'll hand over to the executive officer to just field these questions to the managers who are responsible for the relevant portfolios. But just to talk on transformation, the issue of transformation, again, has been raised a number of times with ASSAf. In fact, it is a big issue that has been raised quite substantially in the science sector. When this particular council took over in October of 2024, we made transformation one of our priorities. To that end, you will see at the heart of our strategy, we do pronounce transformation in very, very, very visible ways. We formed for the first time a committee whose task it is just to make sure that our transformation agenda is taken care of on a more targeted fashion, and also just making sure that we account in as far as transformation is concerned in a way that would be satisfactory to bodies like the one we are reporting to at this point. I must say, though, that one of the issues for us, the bottleneck, has been on making sure that we have participation from universities in particular, because our membership is driven by the nomination process. We should start, say, at universities or the institutions who have members who can easily be part of ASSAf in one way or another, like your CSIR, for example. Those are the scientific councils. But we issue a call and then we leave it to the universities to themselves highlight or identify key or potential members that could be nominated for ASSAf. So ASSAf itself does not do the nomination. We issue a call and the nomination starts elsewhere. But we do have within ASSAf committees that look at the membership just to make sure that all the applications, to make sure that those that ultimately become members of ASSAf meet the requirements as dictated by the Act. So we have identified the issue of transformation as a huge one, but I want to say to the members of this committee that where we have to hit hard, it is in galvanizing the academia, or I would say the science space as a whole, in making sure that when the call is issued, the right people are nominated for election as members of ASSAf. So ASSAf in that regard has its hands tied, and very, very, very key in what this membership committee is doing at the moment. It is visiting these institutions. There is a slide which I remember at some point, I think we would have shown perhaps in this committee. I remember vividly, it's a slide that we shared with the deputy minister when she visited us at ASSAf, which shows the institutions that are currently represented in ASSAf. And we realize that there are quite a number of institutions that are not fully participating. And this committee that we're talking about now has made it its priority to visit these institutions to make sure that at least they are aware of what is happening in ASSAf, and also encourage them to nominate people from those institutions, which we strongly believe will go a long way in our transformation initiatives. For example, I mean, Professor Nida Chetty has been to University of Limpopo not long ago. They were at Mangosuthu University. These are your historically disadvantaged institutions. We've never done that in the past. We are doing it for the first time to make sure that when the call comes, those institutions stand up as well to raise the names of people that we could consider for membership. But there's also something else that I want to raise with the committee. One of the areas where we want to work a bit more, or again in a more focused fashion, is working closely with what is called the South African Young Academy of Science, SACNASP. SACNASP was formed around 2012 to make sure that we have sort of a pipeline of young scientists who ultimately become members, full members of ASSAf at the right time. And there is rigor in making sure that those members that are elected at ASSAf, these are scientists who definitely would be taking the baton from all the leading scientists at the moment going forward in future. We haven't worked very closely with SACNASP in the past, and we want to make sure that going forward, we work a bit closer with SACNASP to make sure that there is a sort of a pipeline of some kind that allows us at any given point in time to have a sense of who the next generation of leading scientists could be, who could be members of ASSAf. And if you look at SACNASP membership, that membership is fully transformed. There is, of course, a legacy issue that is associated with that. We are starting to see a lot of young scientists now becoming very active in science, scientists who meet the EE profile, which was not the case in the past. I'm one of those, by the way. I'm one of the people that were very early in this sector. People like myself went to industry. They did not bother with the universities for very good reasons. But we are seeing things changing now, where young scientists opt for academia instead of the private sector. And I think that will go a long way in allowing us to transform. The 2% that you see there, Honorable, I think it's Honorable Nkosi who harped on the 2% that we see in...
Prof.
Yes.
Majosi, can you also do the division of labor, allow the other executives to be able to take the questions that speaks directly to their area of responsibility?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I will do exactly that. I was just talking about transformation.
And also, yes, and then equally so, as they respond, they must also be in a position to time themselves.
Okay. Okay. So I didn't ask, by the way, Honorable Chair, how much time did I have?
You had 20 minutes to respond to the...
As a whole, yeah. Okay, yeah. So just on transformation, I just want to put your minds at ease, Honorable Committee, that we are doing our best to transform. We are listening to your plea and we are doing our best to transform. I'll hand over to the Executive Officer now to deal with the other issues that have been raised. Yeah, over to you, Prof. Sudhir.
Thanks, Professor Majosi. I think the question on the AI and technology, our council member, Professor Julian May, will start, and then I'll hand over to Susan Felsman to pick up on that issue before I take over again. Professor May, could you please come in?
Thank you very much. Greetings to honourable members and to the Chair. Chair, that is a particularly good question around the issues relating to ICT and AI usage. ASSAf has been active in this field. Our first step was to get our own house in order. Issues around an ICT internal policy and AI usage internal policy were identified by our auditors last year. We have compiled a quite detailed guidance policy and assess the risk of ICT and AI usage within ASSAf itself. That will serve at tomorrow's council meeting as a draft. So we have gone quite far with firstly focusing on getting our house in order. The second is we initiated a webinar series on responsible AI usage. So we have conducted a number of webinars already, so some can give the exact number. We are very pleased that they have had a very high participation by the academic community in South Africa, showing the interest and also the concern about AI. I think we can break that into two areas: a concern around how AI influences our teaching and learning, and then the second, an interest in how AI can be used to make our knowledge production more effective and more efficient. This year, we established an AI forum, which is going to then guide our initiatives in AI. So that's open to all the membership of the of ASSAf. We have a steering committee which has met twice, and at the moment we are in the process of finalizing a statement of responsible AI usage in the formation of policy, which we will be taking to our membership for their endorsement before we release it. So we have been active in a number of ways. Let me see if Susan wants to pick up on anything that I might have missed. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor May. She's happy with your response, but when she takes the floor, if she has something more to add, she will do so. Thank you. Chair, I'd like to address the questions and comments raised about the uptake of ASSAf studies. And I must say that when we do the consensus studies and we go to launch, we invite the respective departments to whom the recommendations carried within those studies will be best suited to address. And during those deliberations, we hope that they take heed of the study that was compiled and reviewed nationally, regionally, and internationally to form the basis for uptake, either as policy or to change some of their structural changes. And we recently undertook an approach to go through all of this, and I have a document which I will include in my summary, if you would allow me that, Chair, in the interest of time, to alert this committee as to how these studies have influenced national and in some respects, the policy front or the planning of the various departments to whom these studies are best addressed. And I hope that that will expand on the very, very good question, because we ask ourselves the so what question, all the time. With respect to the question on or the comments related to our partnership with the DHET, I will now invite my colleague Susan Felsman to address that and some of the other issues that she's picked up that would be best suited for her to respond. So if you allow me, Chair, I will hand over to Susan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I will be answering the question regarding the DHET and our relationship with them. I will also then speak about the journal impact factor and how do we increase it across journals in South Africa. I would also then would like to talk about the publics, the engagement of the publics, and the question about the public lecturers, which provinces did we touch and where have we been. Let me start then with the DHET. Do remember that ASSAf is not the entity of the Department of Higher Education and Training, but of the DSTI. And therefore, as by supply chain management rules, funding cannot directly be deposited into ASSAf accounts. Therefore, the DHET has opted for an option to contract the Stellenbosch University to act as an agency and as a principal investigator for all the work that we do. So we do receive our funding then via CREST at the University of Stellenbosch. But we do get reimbursed for the work that we do on behalf of the Department of Higher Education and Training. We must also bear in mind that this work that we do is only in the field of scholarly publishing and publications quality output as such, and does not pertain to any other activities that the Department of Higher Education and Training undertakes. Just to make that point clear. The question was also asked in terms of the journal impact factor, and the South African Journal of Science was mentioned as a particular example. It is only the South African Journal of Science which is under the ASSAf umbrella or jurisdiction. So we work very hard to try and increase the journal impact factor on a year-to-year basis. It has jumped from the previous year from 2.6 to 3.2 currently. And it needs major investments to ensure that the journal impact factor actually rises in this field. It's a multidisciplinary journal. It is very difficult because it's not subject specific to keep this impact factor growing, so to speak. But we have managed so far, and we're very pleased to announce that. In terms of the other 280 journals being published in South Africa, we offer many training opportunities for editors, for peer reviewers, etc. And that is not only for emerging researchers, but as well as for the more advanced researcher, because editors change from year to year, and we need to make sure that they understand sort of the quality requirements that we've put into place that they have to adhere to. Then in terms of, yes, I just want to add that for the other journals, we have the Cielo South Africa platform, which has a whole suite of criteria in which the journals will have to comply with. Of the 280 journals published in South Africa, only half of them are open access. And those are the journals we are targeting to include in the Cielo South Africa platform, should they actually comply to the criteria that we have set about. Then I would like to move to the question about engaging the public. Please be reminded that we work very closely with the DSTI, which has their own science engagement strategy, and have appointed SASTA as the agency to implement science engagement across its entities. So we follow very suit, which is being led by the way that the DSTIs prescribe to us. If we talk about the word public, that is how we define. It's an umbrella term for researchers, for learners, for the public, the actual public, etc. So it does not just pertain to the public as we sort of commonly know. Public is the word that we use as an umbrella term to indicate all our stakeholders that we address. ASSAf is all about science engagement. Everything we do is we address different publics in the work that we do. The DSTI also has its DGM model, which follows in terms of the provinces. So every year, in liaison with the DSTI and SASTA, it is established which provinces should be targeted. Normally, the provinces are targeted which has not been targeted before. The northern parts of KwaZulu-Natal, for instance, in the Eastern Cape, etc., there are quite a number of communities and municipalities which are being reached out. So it's not, we do not do it in isolation. We really do it as a group effort under the guidance of SASTA. Just very briefly about the young scientist in the South African Journal of Science. We have a huge program on mentorship. We currently have an editor-in-chief mentee. We have associate editors, mentees, and that is our way to also bring young, emerging, bright-minded researchers who would like to take upon themselves to actually manage and edit a journal, to teach and to train them to be able to actually be eventually even an editor-in-chief. Thank you, Chair, and I'll be handing over now to my colleague, Dr. Malusi Twala, to answer the other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. I will be addressing just two questions. The first one regards the allocation of budget for youth activities and the transformation aspect thereof. I just would like to indicate that the figure that was mentioned for 26-27, which is approximately 6 million making 14% of the ASSAf budget, is what is exclusively ring-fenced for the youth activities, which include the Young Academy of Science, the Organization for Women in Science in the Developing World, as well as the annual Young Scientists. However, beyond that, the majority of ASSAf activities invite young scientists. For example, in all our forums, we ensure that at the steering committee level, there is nomination of young scientists. As well as other workshops for science engagement, we do invite young scientists. Specifically in terms of transformation, and I would like to highlight the annual Young Scientist Conference in this case. This conference, we've adopted an approach of taking it across provinces and jointly hosting with universities. So in the past, we've hosted with the University of Venda in 2023, Nelson Mandela University in 2024. Last year in Gauteng, we couldn't secure a university partner. However, this year we'll be hosting with the Walter Sisulu University. In this regard, we depend on universities when we issue a call to welcome ASSAf in joint hosting. So we are highly dependent on universities to actually open their doors. But in line with our geographical transformation, that is the model that we are actually pursuing. Exclusively for the youth earmarked calls, we do have a challenge. For example, with regards to the Lindau project, the annual Young Scientist, and other international platforms specifically for the youth, and including the BRICS Young Scientists Forum. When these calls are issued publicly, some universities do not respond. We do not receive applications for certain universities. That is unfortunately the challenge that we face. In certain instances, we even extend the deadlines. For example, for this year's South Africa-German workshop, which is targeting the youth, we've had to extend the call right directly to DVCs of, HDIs, just to encourage them to apply. So we do targeted engagement with HDIs to ensure that their young scientists respond to these calls, but we rely on them to do that, Chair. Then with regards to the just transition, ASSAf since 2022 established a forum on the just transition. This is a multi-sectoral forum which has a representative from government departments, organized labor, municipalities, and so forth. The policy objectives or focus areas include human resources development and skills. The second one is industrial development, economic diversification, and innovation. The third one is social protection measures. Now, in these three policy focus areas, we are partnering with SETAs. Priority is the energy and water SETA, but also other SETAs. We collaborate with municipalities and other entities of government, such as the Mpumalanga Green Cluster Agency, in undertaking these activities. Thank you, Chair. I hope that addresses the just transition question. Thank you.
Thank you, Malusi. Chair, I will invite our financial manager, Mr. Moraken Chulawani, to respond to some of the questions regarding finances before I pick up the unanswered ones. Over to you, Moraken.
Thank you, Himla, and thank you, Chairperson. With regard to those questions relating to financial matters, well, the first one was in relation to budget allocations. Following the presentation that I made, that we allocate our budget to 3 programs, which is administration and governance, second one, scholarly science advisory program and strategic partnerships, as well as a scholarly publishing program. Under each of those programs, there are cost centers, which I would say, it's quite a number of them. For example, you find that under science advisory program and scholarly science advisory program and strategic partnerships, there are about 15 cost centers. And under scholarly publishing program, we have about 9 cost centers. And therefore, considering the time constraints when it comes to engaging this committee like we are engaging now, it is just not workable that we can provide or present such a breakdown. Because for us to do that, it's like we will require half a day, if not a full day. And therefore, we take cognizance of the fact that this committee doesn't have the luxury of that amount of time. That is in relation to our budget breakdowns. What we do internally is that on a monthly basis, the line managers, in this case, Melusi, who is responsible for science advisory program and strategic partnerships, and Susan Veldsman, who is responsible for science scholarly publishing program, receive cost center reports on a monthly basis, through which they are able to monitor and manage the expenditure in relation to their specific programs. The second question related to funding to each outcome. We don't budget in relation to each outcome. We budget in relation to the cost centers, which fall under specific programs.
Can you also just sum up your responses so that in the interest of time, so that we can listen to pose questions to the next entity?
All right. In relation to that, then I would say, we budget in relation to cost centers and not to outcomes. In relation to audit findings, we didn't have audit findings. It is for that reason that we didn't bring them here. For the past years, we have been receiving clean audits or unqualified audits. We did, of course, receive some findings in relation to our IT. And our IT person, Susan Veldsman, has actually taken steps to address those. And for the past years, in relation to audit opinions or outcomes, ASSAf has been receiving unqualified audit opinions. In relation to budgets, insofar as our sources of funding, 26% of our funding is sourced from outside the baseline. And we consider that to be a significant effort that is being made by the leadership of the academy to source funding externally. Insofar as employee-related costs, ASSAf is a labor-intensive entity. For each activity, you need bodies. And our employee costs takes about 59% of our total resource allocations. Insofar as salaries or compensation of employees, we are mindful that it shouldn't, disadvantage activities, and therefore we strictly base our consideration for that insofar as the inflation rate is concerned. As you know, inflation rate is published by Statistics South Africa, and that serves as our guideline. For purpose of your time, Chairperson, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Morokeng. Chair, I am mindful of time, and I just wanted to add 2 comments in terms of how do we measure and monitor our activities? That is very, very good, a very good question. And sometimes we see, the percentage of downloads of our studies. We get monthly updates in terms of our science engagement numbers. We report on that in our quarterly reports. And also the advertising value equivalent, or the AVE. That gives a kind of an indicator as to what is the impact out there in terms of the viewership and not specifically the take-up, but people who are looking at our activities. How does ASSAf activities remain within the country's policies? We try our best to do alignment. And while we may not be in the position to create a big job market, we do believe that our Science for Science types of activities contribute to the skills and the capacity development of not just the young, but the academic collective of the country, with some of the activities that we have to promote those issues that eventually do contribute to some of the country's policies. With respect to membership appeals, firstly, the criteria for membership is quite strong in terms of academic excellence, leadership, and service to society. And each application is viewed on its merit, following a few recommended criteria. Having said that, we also take into consideration the fact that issues related to demography and discipline, geographic location, etc., is adhered to try to bridge the gap. Chair, in closing, I would really, really welcome a further discussion on the transformation through the department and with you. A lot has been said about ASSAF's numbers not being in keeping with the national demography. However, I have always interpreted this as being what percentage of academia is our demographic profile. We will never meet the demographic profile of the country because not all members of or citizens of the country are scientists. We're talking specifically about the scientific amalgam. And when you look at some of the statistics regarding race and gender, in fact, ASSAf is doing reasonably well. In a previous presentation, I did allude to those numbers. So our numbers in the 30s percentile, 33 for women and 35 for Black, are in fact very, very good. And with respect to women, we outshine most national academies throughout. Having said that, I strongly believe that we have room for improvement. And I don't want to sound, obnoxious, that we, as our president has alluded to, we take the transformation issue very, very seriously. But we will appreciate some engagement through the PPC as well as the department as to what is it that we're making a comparative analysis on when we talk about it. Should we be benchmarking to the national demography, or should we be benchmarking against the total number of scientists across all disciplines in South Africa when we make the score? Chair, once again, on behalf of my colleagues, I wish to thank you for comments. We have taken note of some of the other issues, and if you would allow us to respond in writing to those, it would be great. Over to you, Prof. Majosi, for closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Okay,
Cynthia.
Prof. Majosi, just a moment before you close. I want to take you back, Ms. Susan, on the comments that you've made just now in your closing response. So basically, you are telling us as members of parliament that transformation will not happen because majority of scientists are, according to your information, they're previously advantaged and they are white. Hence, this transformation cannot be measured, or it cannot happen because what you are indicating to us is that you see no need for transformation or for opening up the academy or the council based on the fact that majority are white and the old guard. I just didn't get your last remarks. Simply
No.
just painted a different picture and dismissive of members of parliament's call. But I do have two honorable members here on the platform, Honorable Matambi, followed by Honorable Mjadu, in that sequence.
Yeah, thank you. Chair. You had most of our consent with your last statement, because closing statement is very. I've raised it to say it's in your own documents where you are saying you are not able to find sufficient candidates meeting the selection transformation criteria. And then the chair, professor, says to us there is a selection committee that deals with that. Maybe they should ask what composition of this committee that the chairperson is referring to. Because this institution look like an institution for the elite. And when the last speaker says she had outshined all the other institutions, which benchmark is she referring to? What benchmark? Because we are very specific on these matters. To say then the act is very clear when people make criteria. And when we come to committee meetings, Chair, maybe we do our own research on these matters. There are academics who speak to us that they've been discriminated, they've not been considered, they've applied, then they've not been considered. And then that's why we want to ask, what is the composition of this membership? Who constitutes this membership committee? I've also asked with regard to say, you said there is a criteria. I thought you would specify the criteria you use in considering these people. Honorable is very also clear on this matter. Every time and again, no, when we're talking about demographics here, we're talking about representation in the institute. Bearing in mind, universities are producing all these scientists that are meeting the criteria. So these are the issues. And then also maybe the question that one I asked to say, since you have been in office, when you have rejected these applicants for membership, how many appeal have you considered? And then who are the members of this appeals authority? That question was not responded to, Chair. So I think under the circumstances, our questions are very direct. And then you can never doubt this issue of transformation. As you have rightfully said, Chair, it can't be the old guard determining the future of this country. And then you just brush aside this document, the key policy document that talks about transformation. And that statement on the actual document that says we can't find people. I think it's unfortunate, Professor Majosi, that you can't find a sufficient candidate in the selection and transformation criteria. 30 years down the democracy. No, this can't be. Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Mjadu.
Thank you, Chairperson. I didn't want to raise my hand, but the reason why I'm raising my hand is because of Susan. I say, Chairperson, allow me to ask this question so that I won't take your time, especially to Susan and to this ASSAf. My question it's like a follow-up question. Considering this stance to non-racialism and scientific objectivity, can you explain why certain membership applications are declined, especially from previous disadvantages, without any written reason? In addition, will you commit to providing the committee the full unredacted assessment report and demographic breakdown of successful versus rejected application for these past 3 years, and also the nationalities of these applicants? Because Chairperson, we receive a lot of complaints about this institution. It seems like they used to say they accept application for Black. When we check, we find that these are foreigners, these are not Africans. Can you provide us with full details of that information? Because I don't want to go deeper to this one because it makes me feel otherwise. But let me end here, Chairperson. But if they can send a full report to this committee, why they're rejecting the application for members, because a lot of Black Africans are complaining about this institution. Thank you very much, sir. Chairperson, thanks.
Thanks, honorable members. Thanks, honorable members. Prof. Majozi,
Yes.
as the president and the chair of the council, I want to register the remarks by Miss Susan, the last remarks.
It's Himla,
It's Prof. Sudial. They are all together in one room, Honorable Chair.
Yeah,
that's why
they're just highly unfortunate. You know, you cannot downplay the issue of transformation, and you cannot brush it aside. This then indicates to us as members of parliament that we have a responsibility, members, to look into the Act of 2001, which also gives you a mandate and gives you the selection criteria. If the DG of the department is on the platform, I think what we need to do is we discuss further where you have challenges. We need to also start amending the act that empowers you so that we make the efforts of transformation deliberate, even from our side. I hand over to you, Prof. Majozi.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. This issue is really a very emotive issue. We know why we are really harping on this. I'm directly one of the people that are affected in one way or another. So I understand why the members of the committee are really focusing on this. We cannot transform if we don't make deliberate efforts to do so. And we are doing that at ASSAf, I must say. Before I just maybe, there was a mistake, by the way. The colleagues are in one room, so it appears here as if it's Susan Felsman, but our EO is Professor Himla Sudial. So Susan presented on the scholarly publishing or digital transformation presentation. So on my side, just to answer Honorable Mutambi very quickly, you asked about the membership of these selection committees, which I mentioned in my preamble. At this stage, I must say that we also make sure that the constitution of, we call them the MACs, the Membership Advisory Committees. The Membership Advisory Committees are made up of scientists in different disciplines, but we make sure that in the representation or in terms of composition, all key institutions or institutions are represented. We also make sure that gender is represented. We make sure that race is represented. We make sure across the board. We can share that with you, of course, as it has been requested for us to share. I must also say, though, that going forward, we are doing a restructuring just around that in terms of whether do we still need these MACs? Do we need a different structure altogether to do the selection for the sake of improving our transformation targets? So we are doing quite a lot. We can also share that with you. In fact, at our last council meeting, we took a decision that we will no longer be having the MACs going forward. So we'll have to rethink our structure very carefully in terms of what our deliberate interventions are for transformation. I just wanted to clear that part, particularly the composition of the selection committee. But the questions, maybe I know we are we are not doing well in terms of time, but it's important that I allow Prof. Sudial to say one or two words because the questions were directed at her.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I'm sorry that my closing comments created some response. Chair, what I was saying is that I would welcome further engagement as to how we report on our transformation statistics. I was saying that members of the committee talked about the demography of the country. I'm fairly aware of how the demography of the country is structured. What I was saying is that when we look at how we are performing with respect to our growth of 2%, etc., we take information from the DHET published data about the number of full professors, associate professors across universities, across gender, and across race. And we then compute from there what is the percentage of Black and female at different universities at the various professorial and other levels. And based on that, I said that our targets are within the ballpark of what the national status quo is. I did not mean to be repulsive or to test the statistics and the way in which this esteemed PPC has engaged with us. I was just trying to say that we need a better discussion so that we are all on the same page in terms of how we view our growth with respect to response to transformation. And yes, we have done well in the last few years, but as the total number of membership increases and the denominator becomes larger, the percentages seem to be smaller. So I'm sorry that I offended you. That was not my intention. I was just seeking counsel for further engagements so that we all work together in a coherent way to understand how we are progressing and what we are doing. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. And I again apologize if I offended. That was not my intention. I was just seeking an understanding so that we are all clear on how we are viewing these statistics. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Prof. Explanation accepted. Prof. Majozi, President of the Council, do you have, or had you concluded?
Yes, Honorable Chair. On my side, there is really nothing further.
Okay, thank you. If that's the case, we thank you for the responses, and then we will further as a committee deliberate on where we are just not satisfied with the responses. Some will be done in writing so that we get further responses in writing from your good self. And then to the department, DG, are you on the platform, or is the person?
I am, yes.
Okay. Accordingly, also on this appointment, on the appointment of the ASSAf Council, accordingly as prescribed in the Act, as a committee, we don't see any submission of the report to Parliament in line with what Section 7(6) of the Act prescribes. Perhaps maybe you must be able to convey this message to the minister to say accordingly with the previous weeks also communication that was supposed to be sent to the National Assembly in line with what the Act prescribes, would want him to locate us to these communications. If not, a response, I think the committee deserves a response on why this was not communicated, or the formal communication was sent to the National Assembly in terms of the appointment of the council. DG, because I don't see the minister. Minister was on the platform earlier. Can I be advised if I'm seeing things correctly that he's not on the platform? If not so, I think DG, you can convey this sentiments of the committee in terms of the appointment of this council for ASSAf.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. We will respond to the questions, including the previous one. The team is working with the Minister's office.
Okay, thank you, DG. Members of the committee, can I invite you to engage with the second presentation on the South African Council for Natural Sciences Professionals? I will see with a show of hands. Can I note you, honorable members? Can I note the Honorable Mkhunu as the first member to engage, followed by Honorable Mjadu, followed by Honorable Nkosi, and lastly, Honorable Mtambi, in that sequence.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, let us appreciate the presentation. Mine is just one question, Chair, based on their financial presentation. When you look at it, they in the previous years, when they present their gross profit, it's positive, but when they present their the current year's profit, it's a negative, and in the outer years, it's also negative. My concern on this one, Chair, is based on I can see that they are then balancing it up with the interest. I would like them to at least explain to us how do they what is the method that they envisage employing in terms of getting such a huge profit. I can see that in the previous year their profit was standing at I think 1.2, but now this currently year they are presenting their profit at 1.5002, and if you look at then the negative part of the negative profit, and then they balance it up at the end when it comes to the net surplus and deficit, and you get that surplus of 195. My challenge, Chair, on this one is I want to understand as an entity what makes them to lose profit, but at the same time have an increase when it comes to the interest, to their projections of the interest, because when you look at the interest, it's incremental, and when you look at the profit, it's going down. Every year it is reduced. Are there any some investments that they do that are giving them the high interest every year? Because up until 2029, they are 29, the interest is going up. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson. I will go straight to my question. I just want to welcome the presentation. Let me start with page 14 of SACNASP. They targeted registering 2,400 new natural science professional annual across the MTEF period, but also aim to reduce application processing time from 70 to 140 days in 2026-2027 to just 40 to 70 days by 2028 to 2029. Given that the 2026-2027 target range is still up to 140 days, what specific accountability mechanism will be used to track monthly processing delay? And how many applications were forced to wait beyond 100 days in 2025 to 2026? Page 21, while SACNAS targeted 60% CPD participation in 2026 and 2027, the target for designated group, women's, youth, and person with disability are lower at 55% each. Why are these equity targets set below the overall CPD participation rate? And what consequences will follow if this organization fail to close this gap by year end? Then lastly, Chairperson, page 26, the targets for professional students and learners benefiting from international skills development initiatives. It's only 15 people in 2026 and 2027, rising to just 20 by 2028 and 2029, with over 20,000 registered scientists on the database. When you look at page 11, how does SACNAS justify such a organization accountability for the impact of this 15 placement on national science capacity? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Honorable Kosi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Thank you to SACNASP for the presentation as well. Honorable Chair, just have only few clarity-seeking questions. The first one, Honorable Chair, is I just wanted to check with SACNASP what measures maybe is SACNASP taking to overcome the staff capacity challenges, particularly on the high turnover and difficulties in attracting skilled professionals due to the low remuneration. I just wanted to check that first, Chair. Secondly, Chair, it's on the graduates who are unemployed. I just want to check with SACNASP, what is the plan maybe to enhance the registration process to accommodate and support those unemployed graduates who aspire to register, but they face barriers linked to no registration, no job dilemma. That is what is actually happening. For instance, Chair, is there any consideration for adjusting the annual fees or offering alternative pathways for those unemployed graduates, Chair? Those are the questions, Chair. I just wanted to maybe to get clarity on. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Nkosi, Honorable Mtambi. And Honorable Sapo, you'll be the last.
Thank you so much.
So you'll not be the last. I'll my apologies. I'll also allow Honorable Thembekwayo, who will pose a question through our researcher, content advisor, Dr. Renee. Over to you, Honorable.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is on the financial sustainability and reliance on registration fees. One was looking at your financial projection, and they show that as the organization remain heavily dependent on revenue, is registration fees, whereas while at the same time operation costs continue to rise faster than your own program growth. So I want to understand what are the concrete strategies that you've put in place to diversify income streams and to make sure that you are ensuring there's long-term sustainability without burdening the professionals with the escalating fees. And then with I've got an issue in relation to transformation versus measurable impact. When this one was going through your APP, it repeatedly refers to transformation, inclusion that talks to women, youth, and persons with disability. However, beyond participation percentage in CPD programs, I want to understand, Chair, through you, Chair, I want to know where the evidence of measurable systematic transformation outcomes, such as leadership representation, employment absorption, or retention of underrepresented groups in natural sciences. I think that information will assist us a great deal. The issue with regard to the registration turnaround time and public confidence, I think Honorable Mjadu has also touched on it, but as someone was going through the presentation, you indicate that the registration turnaround times may still take between 70 to 140 days in 2026-2027. But my issue, Chair, in a labor market where graduates and professionals require agent registration for employment opportunities, how does this entity then justify such lengthy timelines? And then I want to also understand, Chair, what are the accountability mechanisms, if they exist, when targets are not achieved? Are there some sort of consequence management, or is just business as usual? I'm also raising this issue, Chair, because as I'm looking on the item talking about enforcement of ethics and professional conduct, you, in the presentation, as we read it, talks about ethical standards and practice notes, but there is very limited detail, Chair, on enforcement outcomes. So my question around that is that how many disciplinary cases were investigated, finalized, or resulted in consequence management or sanctions in the previous reporting cycle? And how does this entity measure whether its ethical intervention actually improve public trust and professionalism, accountability? And then the last one, Honorable Nkosi has touched it in relation to alignment between the entity and the national development priorities. And then you are saying that you are contributing to national priorities such as job creation, public sector professionalism, etc. But then the issue here is as to how many South African graduates in science remain unemployed. And how does this entity respond to the criticism that professional registration alone does not translate into economic opportunity or meaningful integration into the labor market? Thank you so much, Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Mtambi. Dr. Renee, can you read the questions from Dr. Tembekwayo?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The first question, given the economic pressure on professionals, how does the 2026-27 budget balance fee increase against the need to maintain registration numbers? The second question, what budget and personnel have been allocated to address the collection of long-standing annual fees from deregistered or inactive members? The third question, what are the budgetary implications for the current year regarding legal fees and public consultation processes required to finalize this legislative overhaul? And the last question, number 4, what resources are dedicated in the 2026-27 period to auditing provincial and national departments to ensure compliance with the Natural Scientific Professions Act? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Dr. Renee. Can I then invite Dr. Mabaso the chair to lead the team in responses.
Thank you, Chairperson and members for the questions. Maybe before I can hand over to the acting CEO and the team, to engage the members on the other questions, I will talk to the question that came around the issues around the unemployed graduates. Members will appreciate that before unemployed graduates can be unemployed graduates, they start being students. So in order to address that, we are in discussion as a council to ensure that we develop a database which will cater all students which are falling under the natural science professions, so that we know the number of the people that will be going out there in order to address the issue that is raised by the members. The other thing is we are also planning to engage with the potential employers, because the issue around the registration is a requirement, by employers to say graduates need to have like a professional registration in order for them to practice, on a particular field of practice. So we'll be engaging the potential employers, specifically for those who have our scientists who are operating like under the professional as natural scientific professions, to ensure that they waive, their registration fee up until they are accepted, at the place of employment. So those are the measures and measures that the council is looking at in order to address the issues that are being raised. With that being said, I'll request the CEO and the other managers, to engage the committee on the other questions. Thank you so much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, President. And to the honorable members, I will then talk to the question pertaining to the turnaround time, and to assure the members that we do acknowledge the concerns, to emphasize that regarding the turnaround time, particularly in processing applications, and particularly looking at the young scientists, the early career natural scientists. And although we do operate within a regulatory environment where due diligence and quality assurance cannot be compromised, it's also equally important that as a council, we actively review and strengthen our processes. Hence, we are looking at streamlining and improving our digital systems and assess mechanisms to improve efficiency while ensuring that the integrity and credibility of the registration process is not compromised. Our intention, members, is not to restrict entry into the profession or to impact the natural scientists in any way, but ours is to build an enabling and developmental regulatory system that supports our scientists and also protects the public and upholds the integrity of the natural science profession. And just to assure the members that we are working very hard to ensure that we do improve the turnaround time. Indeed, we agree the 40 to 70 days is long, given the challenges that our scientists are facing currently. And then there was another, I think it was a follow-up question with regards to professional registration not translating to the employment of our candidates. And again, we wish to acknowledge that indeed professional registration on its own does not automatically translate into employment opportunities. And as a regulator, we are working tirelessly or collaboratively with other entities and VAs as well to strengthen the pathways for workplace exposure, and through our candidate mentoring phase program that is targeted to early career scientists, focusing on upskilling and reskilling of our scientists, and also professional integration of graduates to being early career scientists. So we therefore view professional registration as one important component with a broader ecosystem required to support employment, professional growth, and to a certain extent, national skills development. And I will then request our finance manager to respond to some of the questions, and then to Advocate Sima to respond to the enforcement question, and I will respond to the other questions afterwards. Can I perhaps invite Mr. Mangalana to respond to those?
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Acting CEO. Thank you so much. I think the first question that I would like to respond to is from Honorable Mkun regarding the finances. So regarding the finances, in terms of the positive and the negative balancing, and also the interest received, I would like to emphasize that it's of course the financial disclosure in terms of the interest. Basically, it is it falls under other income. So we are required, of course, to separate between the other income and the interest received on financing activities. So the financing activities, how we operate is that any funds that are being received or grants that are being received, they are being transferred into they call it a market account, or a short-term deposit, which is available within 24 hours if need be. So it generates revenue. So the more a positive balance you have in your bank, is the more revenue it actually generates. And also, why is it of course increasing? If you look at the funds that we're receiving, from 2026 up until 2029, they of course obviously have increased, and also the number of scientists will have actually will have actually increased. So that will of course result into an increase in the interest received. And then the other question that was asked, I think it was from Honorable Mtambi. It was regarding the sustainability of SACNASP in terms of registration fees. So our fees are actually broken down into two. We've got, of course, the annual fees, and we've got the registration fees in terms of can be application. It can be the QAC, which is of course the assessment of foreign applications. It's from upgrade fees. It's from the critical skills appeal fees, etc. We also derive our income from our partners, such as the NSW, which is the National Science Week, which is under SASTA. We also receive income from Chieta, and also from the CPD. So there is quite a few streams of income. Yes, of course, I will have to acknowledge that majority of our income does, of course, derive from a registration fee. That's about 67% of what we receive from the registration fees. And then the last one think it was regarding the budget in the legal fees pertaining the new bill. Chair, yes, we had obviously budgeted, but it needs to be noted that this process it's done between ourselves and the DSTI. So yes, we had actually budgeted. We've got the budget for about $1 million. We'll adjust it as it goes because it can be a very long process with regards to the workshop and the road trips and also the webinars. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mangalana. And then I will therefore request Advocate Sima to come in.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon to Portfolio Committee members, department leadership, our council members, through the leadership of the President. Maybe first, before I answer the question raised by the portfolio member, is to clarify 1, 2, 3 things. First of all, in terms of our conducts, they are regulated by the current NSP Act. And then from the Act, we generated the Code of Conduct. And the Act itself, it directs as to how the council needs to ensure proper performance and avoid improper professionalism by natural scientists. I must say, before I respond to the question, that the current legislation has its own loopholes. Maybe that's the reason why there is this need to develop this new bill to ensure that eventually the natural science sector get the proper attention. Most importantly, to ensure that the interest and the rights of the public and the environment are protected by first the Act. In terms of the actions or the complaints we received through our 2 mainly channels, which the anonymous channel and through a clear directive, we received over 20 cases in the past financial year. And then but among those 20, there was one which it ended up going to court in a form of a litigation where one of the scientists was challenging the authenticity or the authority of the Act. So I must say the litigation took some time, to an extent that at some stage, as the PCC committee had to decide whether do we still have to proceed in investigating and adjudicating these other matters pending the outcome of the case. And it was based on, after reviewing that, when you look at our Act, the way it has been structured, it had so many loopholes in that somewhere it was even limiting the authority of the regulatory body. And when you look at the sanctions were not encouraging, because our sanctions in terms of Section 33.3, we're talking about fines, cancellation of memberships, suspension, and then somewhere where we realize that a complaint has a criminal or fraudulent element, we'll refer it to relevant enforcement agencies. So in terms of the process, PCC as the responsible committee will look at the merits and look at the Act, decide whether they refer it to the investigation committee, and then after the outcome, and then they refer it to adjudication, and then the sanction. So I must say, from a legal and a regulatory point of view, some of the sanctions, they are not that giving much comfort. And I will repeat again, maybe that's the reason why one of the strategic decision to review the current Act was to also make sure that the sector going forward, it has that particularly when you do the benchmarking with other regulatory bodies like LPC, the one in medical sector, where now if you put a sanction, it can be felt, and at the same time, it will not encourage another third party from committing a similar offense. So in terms of the cases, to answer the case, we did 20. So the litigation case took some time, though it came in favor of us. We were very cautious to minimize attracting more litigations through this case. And then from there, we are currently engaging on the other ones, which are currently on the adjudication process, and then will be finalized soon. The anticipated sanctions include fines, cancellation of membership, suspension, referred, possibly some will be referred to enforcement agencies like SAPS. Equally, we in terms of issue of the public and we are not getting too much support from the relevant department, for example, because some of these offenses, they are being identified by them. And then when you, as the regulator, to say that even from your side, you need to take measures. Let's say, for example, Treasury, where maybe allegedly an allegation was raised through a tender process. And then when you say, okay, you need to put this measure to avoid this litigation from proceeding, you'll find that you're not getting that joy. But I noted from the new bill that going forward, that might be a thing of the past, because the anticipated bill is going to apply to every practitioner. We are no longer talking about registered scientists, rather than the current one, which only applies to natural scientists. So now and then you receive complaints where they relate, or they relate people who are not, or practitioners who are not registered with us, which is a crisis, because our mandate doesn't allow us to go beyond the act, what the act dictates. So you find that matter just doesn't go any further, and as a result, talking about the public trust and ensuring that there is issue of ethical conduct, proper leadership, any integrity within the regulatory body, and then you find that there are challenges. Yeah, but as it is, those are some of the members of the matters, and as it relates to the public, we are trying by all means to ensure that we involve other relevant bodies. We collaborate with them to ensure that eventually our mandate find a way out, but though we have our own challenges, but eventually we hope once the act comes to life, we will get there. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that feedback, Advocate Sima. I will continue with a few of the other questions that were posed by the members. There was one question on the accountability mechanisms, which include internal performance monitoring. Just to inform the members that we do report against our APP targets quarterly, and this is done under the oversight of our council and the relevant committees. And there's also performance management processes applicable to the responsible business units. And also to further inform the members that we do hold bilateral engagements with the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation quarterly, to strengthen the monitoring and evaluation of our performance and implementation progress. And where approved APP targets are not achieved, corrective measures and oversight interventions are in place where we report to our council so that we can address or mitigate the identified gaps and also improve our performance. There was another question regarding the CPD and transformation targets, and as SACNASP, we wish to inform the members that these targets reflect represent a minimum planned threshold rather than the ceiling. And as SACNASP, we do recognize that transformation must extend beyond just the numbers. It must translate into impact and into meaningful progression and broader inclusion within the sector. And in this regard, members, as SACNASP, we continue to strengthen our candidate mentoring phase initiatives, our science engagement strategies, and targeted interventions such as the SheSTEAM program that starts at the grassroots level from young girls, particularly in rural areas, which essentially supports women, youth, and persons living with disabilities. And there was an important question that relates to the capacity constraints. And as the council, we do acknowledge that staff capacity constraints remain a challenge in fully achieving our strategic objectives. And just to inform the members that to address that, this organization or the council has embarked on an organizational design process that is essentially aimed at strengthening institutional capacity and aligning resources to strategic priorities. And additional measures include what we've already highlighted: process optimization, digital transformation, and establishment of strategic partnerships. And there was another key question on outstanding applications, and we do acknowledge that some of we do experience backlogs in certain fields of practice, but as a council, we are implementing measures to improve all of these through increasing the capacity of our evaluators, expanding the pool of subject matter experts, and leveraging digital systems to improve our workflow management and application tracking. So as an organization, we continue to monitor the progress closely to ensure more effective processing of applications and subsequently improving our service delivery. If I have missed out some of the questions, my apologies. However, we will provide a written response on some of the questions that we may have omitted. I will hand over back to the President.
Thank you so much, Acting CEO. Honorable Chair and honorable members, those were our response, to the questions that were raised by the members. So in case we might have missed some, we'll respond to those in writing. So I hand over back the platform to you to guide the proceedings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, SACNASP. Honorable members, allow me to take this opportunity to thank the leadership and the officials from ASSAf and SACNASP for having come before the portfolio committee to do their presentation on the APP for 2026-2027. We do understand the challenges. We were all planning for a fully physical meeting in Parliament. However, nature having taken its course, you were able to improvise and come together so that you can give the presentations to the members of Parliament. That is appreciated. We also do appreciate the engagements as they give us valuable insights on your own strategic priorities, your operational challenges, and the planned interventions for this financial year. We do underscore the concerns of the committee, which is on the area of transformation within science, technology, and innovation sector that remains an urgent national imperative. So we can never overemphasize the fact that transforming this sector is a national imperative. While there has been pockets of progress that can be seen in certain areas, significant disparities continue to exist in relation to gender, race, and also geographic inclusion, and the access of opportunities within this scientific community and the professional landscape. The committee is concerned that many young Black scientists, women in particular, women researchers and professionals from rural areas and historically disadvantaged communities, they continue to face the barriers to participation and advancement of and recognition of their work within the sector. A case in point is in ASSAf, where the Act allows for people who are inside to include those that are outside, but also we are not getting clearly those that have been excluded and those that have not been taken up to say these are the real reasons, or these are reasons that we can be able to comprehend ourselves. But be it as it may, we are looking at an opportunity for us, members of parliament, to engage and see where we strongly feel that the project transformation is stalling, and it is done based on perhaps maybe our own spaces, because your act is an act of parliament, and it can only be us as members of parliament who can go into the act and see where we can make amendments to ensure that we are deliberate in our efforts to enforce a transformation. Because transformation cannot remain a policy aspiration only. It must be reflected in measurable outcomes, in institutional culture, in leadership representation, in research opportunities, and in professional registration trends. So your registration trends must be one that reflect the agenda of transformation. And if we see that you are still an entity, or an entity that is still lagging and not taking these issues of transformation high on your agenda, we must make the efforts deliberate ourselves. And as Parliament, we will continue to exercise our oversight responsibilities, especially on institutions that get public resources, to ensure that there is equal representation and you are ultimately transformed, because we cannot just be talking about transformation, we must be seeing it deliberate. We want to appreciate your engagement with us in this committee, and we thank you. I thank you on behalf of the committee. We are looking forward to future engagements which will paint a picture that allows the members of parliament to see deliberate progress. With those few words, I would thank you, and you may exit the platform so that the committee can continue with their quick housekeeping and committee business. Thank you. Committee Secretary, can you just give us our program for tomorrow and perhaps speak to how we are going to be processing our report and plans for the budget vote, which is to take place on Friday?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just before I get to that, Chair, maybe if we can just, I think I omitted to alert you before the meeting. We have also in our meeting, we now full complement in terms of support The researcher, the parliamentary researcher to our committee has been appointed, and he took office from the beginning of this month. So he's on the platform, and that is Dr. Mofo Ken. So I'm not sure if you quickly want to just maybe switch on his
No, Shanaz, I would not do that, because I would expect that the committee secretary responsible will do the formal introduction to myself, to the new researcher. I think that process has to be done professionally, so it can't be done haphazardly in a meeting. We introduce a person which we do not even know. A written a communication has to come to myself from the committee section responsible for research, and I would applaud them to follow things professionally, so that we avoid frictions in the future, because I would regard this as very unprofessional.
Okay, no worries. Chair, apologies for that. I assume that had happened since the appointment was made early in the month already. So we'll communicate that to our section management, Chair. So for tomorrow, Chair, we have now set a meeting time for between 12 and 2 to consider our report on Vote 35. The idea was to conclude all the entities, so that we can do that. So we hopefully by end of business or latest 6 p.m. today, we will circulate a draft report to members so that they can have view of that, and then we can we will ask Renee to tomorrow, just as per usual, take on the report, recommendations, or the changes to recommendations, or whatever we want to do in the report. We'll do it in the meeting tomorrow, so that we can ATC our report in time for the Friday budget vote. That's the one aspect, Chair. The other aspect in terms of Friday's budget vote, I have put in the chat that the invitation is there. We've arranged transport to be on standby from Parliament, although it's even just around to the museum, is like right next to Parliament. But we have organized from parliamentary transport for those members, although I'm still waiting on confirmation on some of the other members to let me know. But transport is available for the morning session, that lecture, the walkabouts with the exhibitions, and then also the special lecture that has been arranged for the morning, and then also to bring us back to Parliament whenever. So it's parliamentary transport, so we can go at when we want to go, and when we want to come back, transport will be available. There's also a lunch included at 12 o'clock for members who may want to attend the lunch. And then we come back for the proceedings in M46 set for 1400 tomorrow, Chair. I'm not sure if there's anything else that members want to have clarified.
Okay, I think I want you to speak on the memo that was sent by the House Chair, indicating that the committee reports on the budget process has to be ATC 48 hours prior to the budget vote. Also speak to the bringing closer of the budget vote from the 20th, so that members can understand that how we find ourselves in this situation of having to meet in awkward times just to finish the process, conclude with the process ahead of the budget vote.
Yes, okay, yes, Chair. So yes, apologies for omitting that part. So members would have noted that our budget vote was supposed to have taken place next week around the 22nd or the 25th. That budget vote, Minister had made an application that the date be changed because it's got like it was conflicting with something that he had to attend on behalf of the country and the president. So they made accommodation for that. And unfortunately, the date that we were given was the 15th, so it means effectively that our budget vote was brought forward for this Friday, which then means it also affected or impacted how we schedule our committee program, where we would have had, at least if we considered, if we finish our deliberations today on the budget votes, we would have had a considerable time to spend on our report and consider our report. Next week would have been in time for budget vote. There had been a subsequent memo from the House Chair urging or requesting chairpersons and committees to consider, or not even consider, they assuming the consideration is done, so that our report be ATC'd at least 48 hours before the actual budget vote presentation or the vote debate in the House. So by us, if we consider our budget vote tomorrow, which is the 13th, and our vote is the 15th, we will still comply, because the ATC, we've already pre-arranged with our section that we will submit our votes or our report for publication tomorrow, after we have considered. So we will be in time for that call from the House Chair to have the reports published 2 days or 48 hours before the actual vote. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Committee Secretary. Okay, accordingly, we will be getting the report this afternoon, which will be sent to members of Parliament, and members will go through the report, and in the committee tomorrow, we'll allow a process for the amendments of where members feel are not captured sufficiently, or they feel they would want to add, and that process would be tomorrow in the committee meeting, which is scheduled for the afternoon during lunchtime. And when those amendments are made, the report, so basically we'll adopt the report with the amendments tomorrow, and then allow the report to be ATC'd tomorrow afternoon, which then gives us sufficient time to be able to be within the 48-hour timeline. I think that concern is now canvassed, and it is sufficient. Can I note you, Honorable Mazoni?
I just wanted to let you know my hand is raised, Chair.
Yeah, I'm noting you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I find this whole thing highly irregular. I placed on the group the fact that that letter had been received from Honourable Frolic's office. And I must say that I find it even more irregular that a committee is now, and I'm just going to say what it is, jippoing the rules because a minister has to be accommodated for a certain day, and therefore everything must now be changed to accommodate said minister. Chair, I don't, to give us something to read this afternoon, to then debate tomorrow morning, is perhaps the reason why we constantly feel that this committee is treated like a stepchild, because we're behaving a bit like we aren't important enough to really apply our minds and to really make sure that the budget is interrogated. Then to say that if we ATC it tomorrow afternoon, then we fall within the 48 hours as requested by Cedric Frolic. Yes, 48 hours if none of us sleep for the next 48 hours. The intention isn't that it's within 48 hours. I'm quite sure that if someone phones Mr. Frolic's office, you'll get the answer that he refers to in 48 hours, he means working days. And that would perhaps make more sense. But to now have everything put on rush and to just have an assumption made that everyone in this committee is going to be happy to sit back and let this happen, I think is a real stretch, Chairperson. And I would like to most certainly voice my discontent with this arrangement and assure this committee that if we carry on in this vein, I will most certainly be making my dissatisfaction known very well on Friday in the budget debate, because this is not how one interrogates and how one ensures that a committee is correctly operated, and more importantly, that every cent within our budget is duly looked at and that we make sure that we have executed our oversight duty properly. This is a rush job at best, and I think it, quite frankly, is shameful. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mazzoni. Allow me first to indicate to you that it is not you who brought this to our attention. You simply put it in the group, but that communication is a communication meant for chairperson. So ourselves as chairpersons, we were aware of that communication in terms of processing the reports. I've allowed the committee secretary just to speak to the matter because you have deposited into the group. But I, for one, had already satisfied myself that we are within the 24-hour period, which would be sufficiently covered. If the report is adopted tomorrow, we will be in a position to be in line with that 24-hour cut off as prescribed by the House chairperson. I also want to state it categorically that we are not doing any rush job. The report that we'll be receiving this afternoon is our report, and as members of parliament, our work is to read, write, and speak. Upon receiving that report, I, for one, and I know members of parliament who are here on the platform, who will go through the report, read the report thorough. Tomorrow, have an opportunity to engage with the report. I do not see us or any member wanting to have a report for more than a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, simply just to process it. And I want to state it that this is not a rush job. However, if you feel that this is a rush job, as you say, you will raise it in the budget, you are free. Members of parliament are free to air and raise matters which they feel should be raised to the public and to their constituencies. But I want to just put you at ease that whatever we're doing here is in line and procedurally. There is nothing procedurally flawed. That communication that you've put there is a communication that we were already privy to. And accordingly, we have allowed the budget debate to take place on the 15th, as the request has been made by the minister, and we are not in a position to say we are not satisfied with that arrangement, because it has been it was an application that, or a request that was put by the minister, and accordingly we agreed to that request, because the minister had put sufficient reasons that allows us to be understandable and move the budget from the 20th to the 15th. I think that sufficiently covers what the process will be about. Honorable Kosi, is that a legacy hand, or is it a new hand wanting to engage on the matter of the processing of the report for tomorrow?
No, Chair, it's a legacy hand. Apologies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you then. Honorable members, allow me to then thank you, your good self, for taking part in this committee process of the APPs of the two entities that were before us. We are looking forward to further deliberations tomorrow as we go through our report and adopt the report. And I wish you all the best as you are preparing for the budget debate, which will be taking place on Friday. With those few words, honorable members, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.